decided to focus on the woman at the well for this conference. It's just a story that I think is so beautiful. And I know the conference theme is satisfaction or satisfied.
Mhm.
And so I think what I'm hoping to do is just talk about that satisfaction in Christ and just the beautiful story of her and her life and how he just comes to her and he meets her where she is and says, you can be satisfied right here with me. And so I am the living water.
This is Adrienne Weeks with me this morning via Zoom, all the way from the great city of Indianola. and I've had a lot of fun in the last few weeks getting to know Adrienne, both first at a distance and now a little bit more in person. I wanted to give you an opportunity to do so as well through this recorded call this morning. And so, Adrienne, tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a woman of many hats, or wear many hats, at least. I looked at your bio kind of via LinkedIn and other things, and I got tired just reading it. And so, tell us a little bit about you and the many hats you wear.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, I am a wife and a mother. So I am married to Heath and we have 5 children. And so my main job is mothering them and being a wife. And so we do homeschool. And so our children range from age 16 to 5. And so it's a pretty broad range. It's interesting to have a high schooler and then one who actually is not in school yet. So we used to joke that a couple of years ago, we were teaching one to drive and one to potty train. So that was fun at the same time. So I do that most of the time. And then I also teach several classes. So I teach face-to-face at Grandview University. And then I also teach online at Grandview and at DMAC. So all of those courses involve public speaking of some sort. And so, yes, that is what I do then. And then involved with FCA. We've been involved with FCA for several years now. My husband has worked as the soccer clinician at FCA camp in Pella for the past 8-9 years, I think, maybe 9 years. Yes. And we have been involved in FCA. I've been an FCA huddle leader at Hoover High School in Des Moines. And then more recently, we restarted more of a huddle at Indianola this past fall. And so we've been working with a leadership team there for the past several months. And so we're hoping to launch a big huddle a little bit after spring break. So the kids are getting excited about that. So
Very cool. When did you first get started with your involvement in FCA? Was it there at Hoover? Was it as a student yourself once upon a time? How'd that get started?
Yeah, so I was a student in FCA in high school, but then actually let me think what year, 2015, my family and I really wanted to get involved in a service project that our kids could partake in. And at the time, FCA was doing a service project where they were picking up food from all of the quick trips around the metro, and they were taking it to the Des Moines proper schools because they were seeing that a coach had noticed that a lot of those kids didn't have food going home after practice. And so they would then distribute those meals. It was usually sandwiches, things like that, distribute those meals to the kids before they went home after practice. And so what needed to be done is they would pick up all the food from Quick Trip and it had to be distributed into different boxes for those schools. And so the way my family got involved is it was at Valley Church in West Des Moines, and we would go to their community center and they would bring all this food in and we would divvy it out into the different schools, and then someone would take it and deliver it to the schools. And so we met several people through FCA there. And when they found out that my husband was a high school soccer coach, they roped him into being a coach at camp. And we actually couldn't go our first year. And then we were invited to the FCA, what is it called? Banquet, the FCA banquet at the end of that year. And a couple got up and spoke about their experience at FCA camp. And I told them, I was like, we have to go. We have got to go. And so, that couple is now dear friends of ours. And we've been there for, the past 9 years.
Cool. That's awesome. What a cool story. So you mentioned, in addition to the FCA, one of your other hats that you wear is adjunct professor at a few different schools there in the Des Moines area. And in all courses, it sounds like having something to do with public speaking, which is funny to me because if you read, various surveys out there that, most people fear public speaking more than death, right? And so not only do you lean into that, but you teach others to lean into that. One of your classes, so one of the classes you teach at Grandview University, the title of the class struck me curiously. The title is Speaking of Faith and Meaning. And I tried my darndest to find a syllabus for it, but the good people at Grandview do not have it posted publicly online. And so just tell us a little bit about that class. What happens there? What do you hope your students take away from that at the end of the semester? Give us more on that.
Yeah. So several years ago, many years ago, the core at Grandview changed and they were adding oral communication to other courses. And so we had to pivot a little bit to make sure people would still want to take our course. And so we added a few iterations, or what they're called, in to include vocation and a couple of others. And so oral communication is obviously still a huge part of that. And so most students know when they get in the class that it's going to be pretty much public speaking, but some of them don't. And so the very first thing I tell them is that they will learn very little about faith and meaning from me, but they're going to actually learn it from each other. And so the setup of the course is such that they do several speeches. So the first one they do is a speech of commemoration on someone who has impacted them. So someone they can praise the worth or value of. And it can also be an institution. So we've had students who do church camp or Grandview actually, and several other things. But most people choose a person. And so they do that, and they kind of have to dig into why this person inspires them. And then they actually do a speech on a belief system other than what they believe. And so they have to research a belief system, something that's completely different than what they believe. And that's really interesting too, because a lot of students will choose the top 5 religions, but I tell them, the world is your oyster. You can choose whatever. And so we find out about some pretty interesting belief systems out there. And so they do that. And then their persuasive speech is actually on their vocation and how it relates to service. And so they really kind of dive into their vocation and what they believe to be their purpose in life, which can be difficult for an 18-year-old. But I often tell them, whatever you're passionate about, go with that. It doesn't have to be your career. It can be volunteering or donating blood. And I mean, I've had a number of students who will they'll say, I don't know. And I say, what do you like to do? Sleep. And I say, you know what? Sleep is really important. So let's go with that. So they do have to kind of dig deep a little bit on that one. And then actually my favorite speech, which it's funny to call it a speech because we actually over the years, we have learned we sit in a circle, and it's at the very end of the semester, and they actually have to share their own belief system and why they believe that. And it is my favorite part of the semester because a lot of them, probably 80%, are Christian. And then there's about 20% that are something else, whether that is they don't know, or they're Muslim or something else. But it's been really interesting over the years because for a long time, that 20% felt like they had to apologize that they weren't Christian. And so I told them, you know what, this is a safe place. We are just sharing our beliefs. And I tell them, I don't want to know, what your parents believed. I want to know what you believe. And so it's a really fascinating place because they sit and a lot of them cry and a lot of them ask questions. And it's just a beautiful space for them to open up and share their belief systems, or that they don't know and they are questioning what they believe. But I have seen just beautiful fruit happen from there and them speak to one another. And I do share my own story to start off to kind of break the ice. And then it's amazing to see just what takes place. I had one time a girl who was just in a really dark place and a boy tell her, you're so close, like you're right there and you just need Jesus. And it's just a beautiful thing. And it's also a time for me to show them too that you're all very different, but you're sitting here sharing your differences and talking about your different beliefs, and you're not fighting and, calling each other names like they do on social media. So I said, you can talk to people who are different than you and learn from them. And this is to show you how to do that. So it's a really, beautiful thing. So they talk a lot about faith and a lot about meaning and do it in a public speaking area. And it's a place where I love that I get to share my beliefs in the classroom, in that space. So
that's really cool. I am now super envious. I didn't have that class as an 18-year-old college student myself. That sounds really, really cool. I have a million other follow-up questions that I'm going to refrain from asking, and I'm going to encourage our conference attenders to come ask that during your Q&A when you're here with us. But that's really neat. But speaking of Q&A and you being with us for our conference, last question I have for you this morning is, So we've invited you here to do a breakout specifically for our female attendees. And so kind of gave you a broad leeway as to what you wanted to speak on. So give us a little bit of a teaser of what our attenders, our female attendees, can expect when they come to hear you speak on the 28th.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, so one thing I didn't mention is that I lead the spouses Bible study at FCA camp. And so for anyone not familiar with FCA camp, is in Pella, it's kind of unique. They invite the families of the clinicians, the coaches, to come to FCA camp as well. And so the kids get to do some fun kid stuff, kind of VBS style, and then an own like mini kid sports camp for the older kids. And then the spouses, the female spouses, get to go and do a Bible study. And I have led that Bible study for the past 5 years, I believe, and will be leading again this summer. And so 2 years ago, I covered women in the Bible, and I focused on unnamed women in the Bible. And so we have a whole week to do that. And so I don't have a whole week, I have an hour at the conference. And so I have actually decided to focus on the woman at the well for this conference. It's just a story that I think is so beautiful. And I know the conference theme is satisfaction or satisfied. Mm-hmm. And so I think what I'm hoping to do is just talk about that satisfaction in Christ and just the beautiful story of her and her life and how he just comes to her and he meets her where she is and says, you can be satisfied right here with me. And so I am the living water. And so, so I'm hoping to just dive a little bit deeper into her story and go over even a little bit more than I did at FCA camp and just talk about the history and where she's coming from and where he's coming from and just all of the unique things that are happening in that conversation when we look under the surface of what's happening at the well.
That's fantastic. They won't let me stay for the session because I'm a guy, but I look forward to hearing about it for some of our female attendees, which will be great. So awesome. Well, thank you, Adrienne, this morning. Again, we are looking forward to it. So again, for those watching, our Spring Bible Conference is February 27th and 28th. Saturday the 28th at 1 p.m. is when Adrienne's breakout will be. And so we encourage you, if you've not already, to go ahead and register for the conference. And we look forward to seeing all of you and Adrienne there.